Welcome to the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker team. I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ryan Dekker.
And I don't think we've done a show in a while, so that's kind of nice. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
Not together. We've both done shows.
Yes, but it's been a couple of years probably.
I don't think it's been that long anyway.
It's been a while.
When you're his age, time still takes a long time to go, whereas when you're my age, it all mushes together. Yeah, it's a little bit different, huh?
Fair enough.
Yeah. So today's show is going to be called Lovely. Why is it going to be called Lovely?
Lovely.
Exactly. And the reason we're doing that is we've got 3 examples of clients of ours that really did have lovely experiences and lovely outcomes, right? Better than we might even expect.
Yeah,
and so
all in different areas.
Right. And so we're going to give you some stories and some overviews of experiences that are real life and true in the Ottawa market. And I think that's really an important point just to highlight a little bit. There are so many amazing courses out there on how to get great returns on real estate and how to buy them at, 30, 50 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar. There's all kinds of programs, courses, and that kind of thing teaching us how to do those things. And they're not necessarily, they're not Ottawa specific. They're not true life for our city.
Yeah.
And so Ottawa is an awesome market because it's one of the best places in the world to live. It's named one of the best cities ever. And it has very consistent real estate. Even in a shifting market, which we're currently experiencing, it's still very stable. We're still having good volume. There's just lots and lots of inventory. So that is putting a little bit of downward pressure, and yet we're still able to do some great things in this market. And it's still an awesome time to purchase, as well as a very good time to sell. If that's what your life has for you right now, then there's no reason not to. Right? So you're going to share some stories rather than me give all the details.
Yeah.
We thought I could stop talking soon and you could kick in.
Sounds good.
All right. So what's the first one that you want to share with us?
Well, we had this couple.
Yeah.
And they came to us and they decided that they wanted to retire in 10 years.
Right.
And so I'm going to call them Mark and Sue, just to protect their names here. And Mark and Sue had this desire to retire because they weren't sure where their health would be, where their business would be, where their work would be in 10 years from now.
Based on some things going on in their world.
Based on some things going on. But they're doing well right now. And so they wanted a plan on how to do that. And so we talked to them about different strategies they could do, different kinds of real estate they could buy, and the kind of return. And that 10-year plan, we started a year and a half ago. And we got the first property that year. And we're now looking for the second property in that plan. And if they continue on the track they're going, it should be very easy for them to achieve their 10-year retirement plan.
And what are some of the components of that 10-year strategy plan that will allow them to have the freedom and just the life that they're looking for in that 10-year time frame?
So one of the main things people often come to me and say is, I would like 3 homes or 4 homes paid off, but that's not really what they want. What they really want is either a certain amount of assets or a certain amount of cash flow coming in every month to replace their income. Because usually it's not just about owning a painting, meaning a house, but it's knowing what that painting or that house will do for you, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So with this couple, what they were hoping was around $45,000 a year, and that would allow them to do what they wanted to do.
So in terms of cash flow?
In terms of cash flow, and that's for the year. So about just under $4,000 a month would get them there. And so we figured out how many properties they needed, what price point, how much of it had to be paid off at that time, and then we just went to work making the plan happen.
And you're well underway.
And they're well on their way.
And when they first came in, Ryan, would you say, and I think this is a question as much for you, the listener and the viewer, when you first start to have a conversation with us as hopefully your realtor, your investment realtor of choice, you may have an idea of your plan, and yet do you already have a clear understanding of what it is it's going to take, or even what it is you really want? And did they have that, Ryan?
So I would say the one thing this couple had that made their plan work were two things. One is that they had the desire to make it happen, and the second was the commitment. Because it's been a long haul for a year and a half doing the things they've done, and they've had to change their way of thinking, and they've had to change their outlook on investing and what they're buying and what it looks like. And so did they have all the answers? Absolutely not. But the two things they had that really pulled them to their success were the commitment and the desire. And the desire got them into the room, and the commitment kept them going after the room.
Right. And they also attended the wealth building workshop and the buyer workshops, those workshops that we provide on a monthly basis. They attended those to get some good, solid background information and also read the wealth formula and got some good background, solid information that they then would have also peace of mind, right? Because often there's a desire and the commitment wanes, I think, sometimes because there isn't peace of mind in the plan or in the strategy.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer that if you don't understand what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
And so if you're going to look at an investment property and you're like, oh, I'm so excited about this investment property, okay, realtor, go get it. You can do that. You still need to know what you're doing. You still need to understand what it does for you. You still need to understand the risks. You still need to understand the things you can do to make it less risky or mitigate the risk. You still need to have a concept of all of that. And so we can educate you on all that. But if you're not willing to take the time to learn it, or you don't have the right person who can teach you that, that's where the horror stories come.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you're doing it right, and right isn't just the right price, that's part of the equation, and I
we'll
think some of you're going to share some of those stories as well. The right price is a piece of it, and the right kind of property is a part of the story, and the right strategy is part of the story, and investing in something you understand is a piece of the story.
Absolutely. And one of the key parts that this couple wanted was very, very little time required.
Okay.
They have very busy lives with their church, with their work, just everything. They're so involved that they didn't have time to put back into their stuff. Very little time.
Right.
And so we had to create the model and the certain properties that allowed that. So less time, less management, less repairs on the property to fit what they wanted. Because it's not just a financial thing, it's also a time thing. Yeah. And so the plan was a lot more than just, okay, you want this money, let's make it happen. It's, okay, you want your time, you want your money, and you want some cake. Let's make all those happen. And
what do you mean they want some cake?
It's an expression.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you bought them a cake. Okay,
no.
so that you...
I probably should after this one.
Yeah? Once we get into this one with them?
Yeah, a cake would be good.
Yeah? Okay. Good. So anything else about Mark and Sue's story that you think is really important for our listeners and our viewers to be aware of and understand?
I think that sometimes people are waiting for the perfect time. And there's no perfect time. There's today. And so they had a 10-year plan, and they had to start at the 10-year mark. Otherwise, they'd have to go with a 9-year plan or an 8-year plan, and then the plan becomes a lot harder to accomplish, as well as a lot less likely. So the longer the time, the easier it is for us to accomplish what you're looking for. I mean, if you give me 30 years, I can accomplish almost anything, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you give me 2, there's certain things we may have limitations on.
Well, you will have limitations.
Absolutely. On certain things, though.
Yeah, on certain things. Okay.
Because real estate really is a long-term investment. Yeah. So if you're wanting to get started, just start the process. Start getting educated. Start figuring out what that looks like. Start figuring out what you want your life to look at. And then start taking action towards that. Right. And I think that would be the other big lesson, is that they didn't wait for the 9th or the 8th. They just went, okay, we got 10 years, let's go. They got into
and then they took good counsel.
Yeah.
And they collaborated.
Absolutely.
I think that's the big piece. You collaborate really well, as does the whole team, with our investor clients to understand that it's not exactly the same as buying the principal residence that you live in.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah. So what would one or two of those biggest differences be?
Oh, between residential and... well, when you get into the bigger stuff, or even multi-units, you start looking at what the property's making instead of what the property's worth compared to other sales. Still do some of that. However, it becomes more about the numbers. So that's a big difference. Another one is it's not about you living there. And so you're buying it for a certain clientele. And you choose the house depending on the clientele you want. So if you want, I want to be gentle here, you want an everyday family, then you get an everyday family home. If you want a diplomat who wants a very expensive big home, well, then you get a very expensive big home. And each of those markets have different amount of people who come through, meaning there's more people who want the everyday family home. The other option is to go for a rundown home and get someone who's not maybe as high up in the income spectrum, or maybe hasn't been employed for a long time. And so you can make good money on those, and there may be a lot more risk as far as the tenant not paying you or being late on rent or damaging the place. So you make decisions on what kind of place, not because you want to live there, but because you're choosing a certain kind of client that you want to work with. And when I say client, I mean your tenants.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm
Well, they
saying.
are your clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So is there anything else about Mark and Sue's scenario before we move on to another example of something entirely different?
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah? Okay. And
Anything?
so they're well on their way. They're excited about the
Yeah.
journey. And if you want to connect with them, we do know who they are. And they would be more than willing to connect with you and share their story.
Yeah.
We just felt for the purpose of a general example, because giving exact addresses and price points, and we then need permission of the buyer and the seller, and it just gets reasonably complicated. So just know that these are real life Ottawa 2013 to 2015 kind of stories, and it's what's actually happening out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
absolutely.
The next one, Ryan.
The next one is another couple. Do you want to name them?
You guys can name them.
All right. So this couple, they came to us and they wanted a couple properties. So they kind of knew their plan. They knew what they were doing. They needed help finding the property, and not just finding the property, but knowing it was the right property. So within 6 months, I think this was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, Ken helped them buy one property, and I helped them buy another property not even 6 months later.
Yeah.
And the reason they were able to, you're thinking, well, are there good investments all the time? Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is. And you need to know how to spot them. And so we were able to go and help them find not only the right price for it, but the clientele they wanted, the least amount of hassle, the maintenance they wanted, because these people were a little bit handy, so they're okay with a little bit older, but not too much older. And in the market they were looking in Ottawa, there's different options between singles and row units, and so we chose them a property that had cash flow and not a lot of maintenance coming up. And to find that property is one part, but then to be able to educate them so they know it's the right property is the second part.
And you did that well.
Yeah, we did.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk more about them. I just want to say, if you're joining us right now on the Inside Track on Real Estate, I'm Yetta Dekker, and I'm with Ryan Dekker, and we are talking about client experiences, specifically in the area of investing in real estate, right? Not your principal residence, although that is also an investment.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, the only big area where they have equity or a fair bit of investment money situated. These are stories about people that have chosen to live in their own principal residences, their own homes, and then begin the journey of buying additional properties where other people are paying off their mortgages and building, and time is building equity and letting their money work for them rather than them work for money.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
That's right.
All right. So some more details about the second scenario, Ryan.
Yeah, what do you want to know?
Why would somebody, I mean, you talked a little bit about time availability. Why would somebody choose single family versus condo or multifamily? What are some of the other reasons even these people narrowed in on the specific type of property that they did narrow in on?
So when I have people in the office to talk about investing and we hear what their plan is, we're also going to tell them roughly 5 to 6 different kind of properties they could get. And there's a lot more than that, but there's 5 or 6 broad groups.
Basic, right?
Basic. Yeah. You got your condo, you got your row unit, you got your detached, you got your duplex, you got your bungalow that you can put an in-law suite, you've got your fix, your renovate and hold property. So there's
and you've got
6.
your triplexes and your
fourplexes. And then you got your
fourplexes.
bigger properties as well.
Right.
So there's these options, and there's in town, there's slightly out of town, and they all affect your clientele, your price point as far as purchase, your price point as far as rents, and your equity increase over time. And so when we look at your scenario, we'll also look at what you're wanting to take on. Because some people are handy, other people aren't. Some people have time, some people don't. And so I can't just say, this is the best property, because your situation is so different that we really want the right kind of property for you.
Right.
I don't know if I skirted your question.
I'm not sure if you did. Did he? If he did, you can email him at ryan@dekkerteam.com
Nice.
and ask him the real question, and he'll give you the real answer. Or you can email me at yetta@dekkerteam.com and tell me.
Perfect.
Anyway, no, I think you did a good job there, Ryan. So in relation to investing, is there something with these clients that you said, don't do that? Like, is there sort of 1 or 2 things that you always say, don't do?
Yeah.
And what is that?
Don't overpay.
Okay.
So when you're buying an investment property, you may need to make 2 or 3 offers to get the right property. Now, if you're making 15 offers, you're not making anything happen. And it's not about beating someone up or, getting the best deal that man has ever had. No, it's about getting a good deal and then making sure it's the right property for the long term. And so I never want my investors to overpay, because if something happens in a year or 2, then even though they only paid $3,000 more than they should have, it's $3,000 now that has to come out of their pocket. And so I'm very particular with my investors on making sure that we're not overpaying. And it's easy to do that in this market, not necessarily when everything's flying off the shelf. And so now's a great time that if you're wanting a couple thousand off of what market value is, now I'm not saying 10 or 20,000.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't want to oversell though. Usually it's a couple of grand and we're doing quite well for this market.
And as long as the numbers are working and it fits your scenario, then that's a good, wise decision.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the negotiating side of it in our next case study.
Okay. So you don't want people to overpay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, Ryan?
I want it to, 2 things. I want it to match their goals in life, and I want it to add value to them instead of taking it away. So you've all heard that story where the landlord is just so stressed out. They've had all these terrible experiences. Their kids and their grandkids will never do this kind of a mistake because they're going to make sure of it. Those aren't the stories I want for my clients. And so the kind of things, we make sure is that, yes, it's the right property. Yes, it's going to give them the clientele they want to deal with. Yes, it's going to take the appropriate amount of time. Now, there can always be hiccups. We don't want to buy it knowing we're creating hiccups. And so that's number 2. So number 1, get a deal. Number 2 is make sure it's what you're looking for as far as investment and as far as time and desires. Your life.
Like that it fits.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a great deal if it's not what you're after.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it looks like a great deal, if it's the totally wrong kind of property in the total wrong area.
Even a slightly wrong kind of property. It doesn't even need to be major. Like, I could go find you something that would make you cry for 3 years, but that's not the idea. The idea is even if you miss it by a little bit, it can still create havoc in your life. So being educated on the different kinds of properties and why you would choose that in your situation. And so I normally lay them out in front of people, very detailed, and then give them some time to choose which kind they think would work for them. And then we'll start looking at one option. And if they decide, that option just won't work for us, well, then we'll start looking at another option. But we start with one. We don't start with everything because people are just like, what is this?
It's too much,
It's
right?
way too much.
Yeah.
And another thing I haven't talked about is location.
Right.
Some people don't want it near their house. Some people want it right next door because they can look at it, where the people who don't want it next door don't want to have to deal with, the drama of being beside your tenant. And so, again, that has to do with the person, not necessarily the property.
Right, so that's a good one. How close to you do you want it to be?
Yeah.
Okay, so a third case scenario.
Yeah, this couple, I love all my couples. And
You like your singles too,
I like
don't
my
you?
singles
Because
too.
I have an investor
Yes.
client right now
Yes.
who I'm loving working with again, who's a single.
Yeah, I meant to say clients, not necessarily
Okay,
couples.
thank
However,
you.
they are a couple, and they're becoming missionaries. And in order to become missionaries, they have to do a couple things. One is they need to create either people to provide for them or them to provide for themselves. And so what I've seen in their life is God's using both. So they've downsized their lives. They're doing really interesting things so they can have more money, so they can give more money, which is really neat. And one of the properties they bought with me was, I wouldn't say it's overpriced. It was priced well, and the rents were lower than what they could have been. And because of that, I believe the market value was lower because there's no guarantee we're going to get this higher rent. And so the realtor had rejected all sorts of offers. Once we were able to talk to the realtor and I was able to explain to them that the reason we were coming in at this lower offer was because the rents were lower than what the price was dictating. And so we got a lower price on the house. And very short.
And other people had had it rejected with even more money than your clients were offering.
Yeah.
So that's a really important piece that I want everybody to hear. It's not just about throwing an offer in with another realtor or with a potential seller. It's about sometimes educating, or often, it's about educating the other realtor, because if the realtor doesn't believe the value is there or that the offer is a good offer, they're going to discourage their seller from taking it, right? Yeah. No seller wants to take less than he perceives the home is worth. And with somebody educating them, which Ryan educated in this particular case, the realtor incredibly well, that he presented it in a different light. And therefore the seller was able to have his eyes opened, really.
Yeah.
And the other people were already giving some indication of the value, and yet this still wasn't the highest offer.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was the one that bought it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It is awesome. And a couple more things that made it so awesome is one of the rents we were able to get up to that market rent right away.
As soon as you owned it and
purchased it. As soon as we owned it, within 2 weeks it was rented for the higher value. So a $300 increase in rent goes a long way. That's $3,600 for the year. And so that was helpful.
And it was already okay cash flow before you did all that.
Because we got it at the right price.
Right.
And then the other one that we're hoping to get up, they're still renting, so we can't create that rent increase yet. And so it's still good, and there's still more potential to get even better for them.
So it's going to be an amazing value, like undervalue really now, given they've been able to do some good things with it.
Yeah, very good. And on top of that, because of the price we got it at, I love this, the agent was like, my guys have told me they won't go down another dime, no way, regardless of what you find in the inspection, it doesn't matter, we refuse to pay or take a dime less. I mean, they did the inspection and it was pretty good. There wasn't a lot of issues, we were happy. However, we saw with some of the old plumbing going out, because it was an older building, it just didn't look right. And so our inspector advised us to get a scoping of the sewer system. So we got a scoping, and when we scoped it, there was a broken pipe, and so it was going to fail very soon. It hadn't fully failed, but the sewage system was going to fail. And so we went to them and said, this is what we found, here's the scoping, and we were able to get another $7,000 off the price, even though they said not another dime. And that wasn't even from the original inspection. And so, again, it's not about beating up on someone or taking advantage. It's about educating them so they can make a wise decision. Because if they didn't make that call, it probably would have broke on them soon, and they would have been out even more money, and it would have been on the market longer and sold for less. So it was a win-win for both parties.
Right, and you were able to bring them together, and the other agent and the seller felt great about it, and your buyer felt fantastic because instead of moving in
and having an issue
right away, and now all of a sudden it being actually a poor choice, it remained a good choice because you chose to encourage them to take yet another inspection step.
Yeah, and so that's another thing is I've had a few clients who have decided to do their own inspections, and it's not that it's bad, because some people are very good and have the skills, and there is something about going through every system by system in the property and making sure not that it looks good, but that the electrical's good, the plumbing's good, the heating system's good, and finding those issues. It doesn't guarantee you'll find them. It's just a lot more likely.
Right. Okay. So if you have questions around those case studies, which are actually real-life examples of clients that we have helped in the last little while, or any other investment scenarios, or you are ready to have us represent you as an investment specialist, you'll want to give us a call, 613-860-4663, 613-860-4663. And most months, and on the majority of Thursdays, we're running a workshop. So if you're interested in a workshop either on financial fitness or buying a first or second property or investing in real estate, building wealth through real estate, or a career in real estate. Those are kind of our areas of expertise and specialty. You'll want to give us a call and we will plug you into the right one. And Ryan, you have a property that we have for sale right now, and that would be a good investment type property, or could be a family home for somebody. It's got a lot of different options going on for it. So can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, we got a farm for sale. And farms are a different kind of investment because they take a lot of work, or they take a lot of hiring the right people for that work. And so I don't think it's not that it's not passive. You can create it passive. It takes a lot of foresight and a lot of work and a lot of just ability to create that. So it takes a little more skilledness than someone who just wants, an hour a month and a nice rental property. Right. That's great. So this property's great. It's 107 acres.
Yeah.
Big. And it's in the city.
Right.
Not
well,
downtown,
when he means in the city,
it's in the greater Ottawa area.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
It's not downtown on Spark Street.
That'd be great. I'd love 107 acres. And there's a bunch of barns that can be done different things with because they were built that way. So they're insulated, and there's a lot of room there. And there's 2 houses on the property. One's in rougher shape. One's a fair bit newer. So there's so many options for rentals and for different things. And not right now, however, many years in the future, there may be an option to subdivide. And
yeah, that's not what we're selling. And it's not priced according to subdividing.
No,
it's really priced according to what it has to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that property, you will want to call Ryan because he knows it inside and out.
Yes.
613-860-4663. Thanks for joining us on the Inside Track on Real Estate, Ryan.
Thank you.
The rest of you, thank you very much. Have an awesome week, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on